we play a game?
Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky in Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I do a lot of things on the show, games, comic books, movies, TV. So even though I do a lot of games, the Shane Plays isn't just about playing games. It's when I play. It's when I have fun and when I geek out. So thanks so much for listening. And to help me geek out today are returning friends of the show and fellow certified card-carrying geeks. Got Richard McBain, in no particular order. I'm just going by my Zoom screen here. Richard McBain and William Brackeen, who listeners of the show should definitely know those names. They've been on more than once for all kinds of different topics. But they were part of the panel where we talked about Infinity War, Marvel's Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. And so now we're going to talk about the two newest shows from Marvel that dropped on Disney Plus recently. And then also we're going to talk a little bit about Marvel Phase 4, because those two shows basically kicked off Marvel Phase 4. And I'll be honest, guys, I've been kind of nervous about Phase 4. I've been geek nervous, right? Because even though it's entertainment, as geeks, we get nervous about it. Because they blew a lot of big powder with Endgame and Infinity. I mean, how do you, after that 10-year multi-movie, was it 22 movies, I think, something like that, all came together, told a coherent story, an amazing finish in Infinity War and Endgame. I'm like, how do you follow that up with compelling content that doesn't just feel boring compared to what's come before? So I've been kind of nervous to see how they're going to come out of the gate with that. What Richard and William, what are your thoughts on that? Have you been like, you've been looking forward to Phase 4? You think they can pull it off? Do you think that it's like they should have just finished with a bang and left it, or like, what do y'all think?
Well, I think the answer to your question is where they go from there.
Right.
Is they get geekier.
Oh, yeah. I like that answer.
Because that's exactly what they've done in these two shows we're going to be talking about, is they have turned the geek to 11.
They did. Yeah, we're going to be talking about WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which were basically the beginning of Phase 4. Interestingly enough, they kicked off Phase 4 as TV shows instead of as movies, but we'll talk a little bit about that, whether, were the TV shows up to the quality and all that. We'll get into that. What about you, Richard? What were your thoughts? Were you eagerly anticipating Phase 4, or did you feel like you had your Marvel movie too satisfied with the first 10 years, or where are you at on this?
Well, I think definitely as comic book purveyors, we were definitely all pretty satisfied with what Kevin Feige and company have rolled out to this point for us. I think, is
that how you say it? Feige?
I think
I always say Phage or Feige.
I've heard Feige, but that's kind of what stuck with me. But I have no clue.
I think it is Feige.
The question has come up on this show before, and I can't remember what the answer was.
Feige is what I've heard from many different sources, so that's just kind of what I roll with until I'm told otherwise. But no, all that to say, I think we can all agree that. What Kevin and company have done in terms of putting out a 10-year plan and executing that plan has been something that we haven't seen. Yeah, I mean, just thinking through all of the different franchises throughout cinematic and TV history, it's really impressive what they've been able to accomplish. So I was a little worried about, superhero fatigue a little bit. I think that's a concern that all of us who live in this realm, at least is somewhere in our minds. But I really, I think the idea to push forward Phase 4, starting with television, allows them to really dig deeper into source material. Which I'm sure we'll hit on talking about both shows that have hit so far.
Getting geekier.
Getting right, geekier. Exactly. right. To coin the phrase, they can definitely get geekier.
Getting geeky
with the television format. And so I think that was a smart play on their part to lead off with TV series instead of film. And it's obvious now that they're all in with interweaving both formats.
They are.
And making it one thing essentially. So
they said before that they were, when they did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they said that was going to be fully part of the cinematic universe. And after the first couple of seasons, it kind of branched off to where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is almost its own little thing, which I still like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
A great show.
And now they're talking about the Netflix shows that have already come, like Daredevil and
Jessica Jones,
all that are going to be not considered, I don't know, canon or what. I don't know. I hear things. Yeah. I hear things, but I don't know. But when they first came out, they said, no, these shows are as much a part of the MCU as the movies. And then evidently that's changed over time. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing. When was Endgame? Endgame was about 2 years ago, right?
2019. So
summer, I think it was smart to give like a 2-year break. Let things relax a little bit. And I think that helps avoid the superhero fatigue, because it's a short enough time frame that people still remember everything really well. So they're still like, they could just jump right back in. But, it gives everybody a break from just, well, I've got a superhero movie coming out every 3 months. And I don't know if that was planned originally or if COVID led to that or whatever, but I think it'll be good, speaking of superhero fatigue. So as much as I love superhero stuff, I don't want to go to a big movie every 2 months because it'll lose its whatever. So anyway, okay. Well, let's take a look at, I want to take a look at what's coming in Phase 4. Had some announcements recently, and I'm really going to do my best to make this short, because we could just go off on huge
off the rails real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, we could go off the rails. So I'm going to do my best to keep us kind of on rails, as it were. So television series-wise, we have a tremendous amount of movies and television series that are going to be part of Phase 4. We've already got the first 2, which were television, and that was WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which both came out within the past few months on Disney+. So, and then here's a quick look at the movies that we're getting, and then the TV shows. So we're getting Black Widow this year, 2021. We're getting Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which Master of Kung Fu ran forever, like in the 70s at Marvel. That was a very long-running series, and it was basically, if you go look at it, it was basically Bruce Lee.
Right.
They took a character, and it was Bruce Lee, and made Shang-Chi. And it was very popular for a long time. I would say that comic nerds know a lot about it, but your average person, movie watcher is probably not going to know. What I'm curious on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is, now I hear the Mandarin's going to be in it, or the Mandarin.
Right.
The Ten Rings, obviously, right? The Mandarin's 10 rings. But they said it's not going to be the Mandarin that, you expect from the comic books. Yeah. So, which that was a big disappointment to me personally from Iron Man 3, the direction they went. It was kind of funny that he turned out to be a hollow puppet or whatever. But I would have loved to have seen the Mandarin with the 10, what are they, Mockley rings? What do they call them? Those alien rings. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I think in the comic book, now I haven't read a lot of Shang-Chi, but I know there was a lot of supernatural action and, maybe Oriental mysticism and that sort of thing. Do we know much about what's going to happen? Like what's going to make this a Marvel movie and not just a martial arts movie? Do we know?
I don't know what specific MCU tie-ins there's going to be in the film. Now, the reason that they're using the Mandarin is that they don't have the license to use the Yellow Claw any longer.
Oh,
or not the Yellow Claw, but not the Yellow Claw, but Dr. Fu Manchu.
Okay.
Because in the comics, Shang-Chi is Fu Manchu's son.
Oh, okay. they were also, were they nemesi
yes.
to each other?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was the arch villain to Shang-Chi. All right.
Yeah.
I imagine there's going to be some either mystical or supernatural or technological something. I mean, I don't see that. I don't see Marvel putting out a movie where it's basically just a martial arts movie. It's going to be martial arts plus, right? So, it's interesting that they're coming out. I mean, like you said, they're getting geekier, because it would have been real easy to say, well, let's don't do Shang-Chi. Let's do Nova, or something like that. So, it's, even though they've already introduced the Nova Corps, but what I'm saying is like kind of a superhero character that not everybody knows. All right. So this is interesting. So Shang-Chi is also 2021. Eternals, 2021. That's been getting some previews and hype here lately. And Eternals, I think it's interesting they're trying to do the Eternals because it's not exactly Kirby doing the fourth world in Marvel, but it's close to Kirby's. Kirby basically came over to Marvel and did kind of a fourth world type pantheon of characters at Marvel. So that's what you got Icarus, you got, who all do you got? Icarus is probably the most well-known.
Icarus,
Cersei, who was an Avenger. Yeah. And I don't know. What do you guys think about this? What's your take on Eternals? I'm going to see it because it's a Marvel movie. I'm not like geeked up to see it. I don't have anything against the Eternals, but they're not like by any means like my comic love or anything like that. So what Bill, are you geeking for this one? And then we'll let Richard.
Well, I may have to turn in my geek card because I have to admit I have never read a single issue of the Eternals.
Yeah, that's okay.
But
we all get
you can't read everything.
I will say
you can't read them.
That I will say that if they can make Guardians of the Galaxy into a tentpole movie franchise,
right,
they can make the Eternals into a tentpole movie franchise. And I think
that's fair.
That some of these, like especially a lot of the Kirby stuff, actually lends itself to more of a cinematic point of view than even a comic point of view. Because I think in some respects that the concepts are actually kind of too big to really be taken in a comic form. Because I know, like as a kid reading comics, I was not big on a lot of the Kirby stuff at DC or Marvel, just because I didn't get it.
Like the scope
and
of
now,
it?
And seeing it now, a lot of the things from Thor and some of the other concepts that they've done, I get it now.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I'll tell you. Well, go ahead. What's your thoughts on it, Richard? Are you geeking for this one, or are you just kind of going to see it because it's Marvel? I mean, I'm going to see everything because it's Marvel.
That's a given, right? I mean, for the three of us, I think that's
right.
I mean, that's pretty standard. For me, I think you know me well enough, and anyone that does know me well enough, being a cinephile that I am, I look at these projects that are coming out more from the creative back end and who's attached to those projects, along with the source material that's being, built off of for these film and TV shows. So, like, for instance, Chloe Zhao being the director, creative force behind Eternals, Daniel Dustin Cretton, the director behind Shang-Chi. Both of those people right. I follow. I know their works. I'm excited. I think they're great storytellers. So, for me, I'm excited because I like the back-end talent that is attached to the project, and so that gets me excited just as much as the source material would be. To answer your question, yes, I'm very excited for Eternals and Shang-Chi. Black Widow, I'm excited. That's going to be a wait and see for me. Honestly, I'm hopeful for it. I like the talent in front of the camera on it. Back end, we'll see. I'm kind of wait and see on that. So,
well, I think it's I like the Black Widow character.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a prequel because of what happened, in the movies. But, it'll be interesting. I mean, there was something, Kurt Russell's son, I can't remember, was it Wyatt Russell that played John Walker in the... Okay, so he was talking to somebody, like, should I do this or shouldn't I do this, playing John Walker? And I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody in the business. And they said, Marvel doesn't let things be bad. So, it will be good. But that kind of touches on something, everybody know how good they are. They're occasionally going to stumble. And the closest thing they've done to the Eternals so far is the Inhumans. And the Inhumans is average at best, below average at some points. It just wasn't their best
But keep
effort,
in mind,
right?
Inhumans was not Marvel Studios.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't Feige and Company. So that was a very that was like the Hulu shows that we've gotten and the other stuff.
Good point.
It's got the Marvel logo on it, but that's really as far as it goes.
But they didn't make it.
Right.
Okay.
So that's where I would say I wouldn't.
So don't expect.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think that comparison holds really.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I'm gonna push this on here. Of course, we have Spider-Man: No Way Home, 2021. Mm-hmm. Not only have all of the MCU Spider-Man movies been great, but the ending of the last one set up a very exciting, they know his identity and all of that. And so I'm really looking forward to it. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness comes out 2022. Thor, Love and Thunder. I think that's going to be another big one. Thor, Love and Thunder 2022. Because that's not only going to have Thor, it's going to have the Guardians of the Galaxy in it. And it's also going to have Jane Foster as Thor, if I understand correctly. Now, I did not read the comics where she was, but you enjoyed them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you enjoyed them, Richard.
Some of the best comic I've read in the last 10, 15 years, probably, series-wise. Yeah, incredible.
And in the comics, Jane Foster had cancer, but was also Thor, right?
She was terminally ill, correct. And, and through a series of events that led from, if you read Original Sin, the events that ended Original Sin led right into Jane Foster picking up Mjolnir and becoming, Thor.
Interesting. Well, I remember you saying you really liked it.
It was really good.
So, all right. Now, this is going to be interesting. Also in 2022, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. That's going to be interesting for a couple of reasons. One, the first Black Panther was amazingly good. It blew me away. Mm-hmm. Everybody loved it. But two, of course, we've lost Chadwick Boseman, and they've said they're not going to try to recast T'Challa. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, whether they make Shuri the Black Panther or they do something else. So that'll be really interesting. It's such a shame. I mean, it's a shame when anybody dies, but such a shame for Chadwick Boseman because he was just starting really his career, was fairly new into it, and such an important symbol to a lot of people as the Black Panther, and then just gone, So now, next movie is also interesting to me, 2022, The Marvels. That's the next Captain America movie, or Captain Marvel movie, but they're calling it The Marvels. I have no idea what's going on here. Do either of you have insight into this movie?
That's because Kamala Khan is going to be
Miss Marvel.
So ergo, the name change and not necessarily change. Because I don't think it's ever been the title for Captain Marvel 2 was never announced, so it's technically not a change; it's an announcement.
Okay,
right.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
Captain
her
Marvel
and
2
Kamala
was just
Khan.
the working title,
right?
And I believe we may also see the Photon version of Captain Marvel in that film as well.
Yes.
Well, Monica Rambeau is probably going to be in it too, right? Because Monica Rambeau basically got her powers in WandaVision. So maybe it'll be the three of them. I don't know. Yeah. So I've always liked the Monica Rambeau character as Captain Marvel, actually, because when I was, doing my first major deep dive in the 80s into comic books, she was Captain Marvel. She was on the Avengers and all that. So I've always been a fan of the Monica Rambeau character. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. That's the title's great. Now that's 2023. Then we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, also 2023, and Fantastic Four. So I have a side news item about Fantastic Four. So evidently, they've approached John, is it Krasinski?
Krasinski.
More than once. They've approached him again recently, according to let's see here. I've got the news item here. We got this covered. Just came out a couple of days ago, and it says Marvel has reportedly made another offer to John Krasinski for Fantastic Four. So evidently, he's turned at least one down. Now, is and they're also trying to get Emily Blunt, obviously for Mr. Fantastic and Susan Storm, right? I mean, from dream casting, that would be a great casting, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
If Krasinski is Reed Richards, then Rainn Wilson must play Doom.
Who?
He must.
Owen Wilson?
No. Rainn Wilson from the
Rainn
Office.
Wilson. Oh, yeah. That would be perfect. Yeah. That would be perfect. Well, anyway, I mean, Hollywood's a business like anything else, but I could definitely see Krasinski and Emily Blunt as Mr. and Mrs. Fantastic, and they're both great actors.
Yes.
They make great movies. Quiet Place 2 trailer dropped recently. So, okay. Getting back to the list here. Now let's get to the television series. WandaVision 2021. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier 2021. We've gotten both of those already. We'll be talking about those here in a moment. Now I have just a list of TV series here, but I don't have dates on them. So if y'all know any dates, feel free to throw them out. Loki, season 1. The Loki that got away in Endgame. So the main Loki died, or at least our Loki. But then in the alternate timeline, he took advantage of, he grabbed the cube and ran, didn't he? Or his staff and ran, saw his opportunity.
Yes, he got the Tesseract and took off with it. June 9th is the premiere date of Loki.
All right. And I read something that he's going to be like reality hopping or something. I don't know the whole setup on this.
He will be an agent. Yeah, he's going to be an agent of the Time Variance Authority. And when I say agent, I mean more like captive.
Forced, indentured.
Right.
Indentured. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I loved Loki's arc in the first 10 years. I see him as the Boromir of the MCU because Boromir's redemption in both the novels and the movies, where he comes to his senses and dies protecting the hobbits, is always that's a big feels for me every time. And Loki at the end, he gave his life, trying to save people. So that was a big character arc for Loki. So I'm looking forward to seeing what because this version of Loki just lost at the end of the first Avengers movie.
Right.
He just lost the Chitauri or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
He lost. So he's that Loki. He's the Loki that just got slammed all into the floor by the Hulk.
Right.
So he hasn't had time to, grow it all or whatever. What If season 1? This is animated. I'm so down for What If season 1. I love What If. And since they're doing it animated, they can do a lot of crazy stuff. I've heard that Chris Evans is going to voice Steve Rogers. They're doing some interesting stuff with What If. And that's always been one of my favorite comic books. Is What If.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
What If
it was great.
Yeah.
Great stories.
And if people don't know what If is, they're basically they're like somewhere in the multiverse, a major story arc that turned out differently. Let's see how that went. So, what if, Jean Grey had survived and, stuff like that. There was one they did a What If where the Punisher became Venom and mentally dominated the symbiote and turned it to his will. And I loved that a lot. So Ms. Marvel, we have a Ms. Marvel TV show coming. And that is obviously, I guess, going to spin out of the Marvels movie.
I think it's going to lead into, actually.
Is it going to lead into?
I believe it.
Around. Yeah.
Right.
All right. We got Hawkeye. And Hawkeye is actually going to be Clint's daughter, right? Kate. That's what I'm hearing. He's training his daughter because they never call him Hawkeye in the movies. He's always Agent Barton or Clint. They never actually call him Hawkeye, do they? I don't think so.
I don't. Yeah, I kind of like Scarlet Witch. I don't know that up until this point his comic name has been uttered. So
because even in Infinity War, or no, at the beginning of Endgame, before she dissolves in the snap, he's helping her shoot a bow, and I think he calls her Hawkeye, if I remember right. All right, we got Moon Knight. a lot of people are looking forward to this one because, let's be honest, Moon Knight is bat crap crazy Batman. That's Moon Knight, and I'm all about it. I've always loved Moon Knight. So,
my favorite thing about the show, Ethan Hawke as Jack Russell.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, well, you can't. Cool. I mean, the talent in front. I mean, Oscar Isaac is he.
And he's playing Mark Spector, right?
Yeah, he looks like he's
that's one of the personalities. Moonlight, I don't know. I know there's a lot of sensitivity these days to mental health issues, so I don't know how they'll approach it. But the classic Moon Knight had like 5 split personalities, from billionaire Mark Spector to arms dealer to. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. But he's going to be Batman unhinged if they follow kind of a lot of the different comic books. Now, She-Hulk, that'll be fun. Looking forward to She-Hulk. And this is the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which James Gunn is involved with this.
Yes.
So that should be pretty great. And I'm moving through these quick just to get us moving on. So Secret Invasion. That's going to be a TV series. That's a huge storyline for Marvel Comics. That's where, now in the comic books, it was the Skrulls, right?
Right, the Skrulls.
And I'm wondering how they're going to do that because in the MCU, they've made the Skrulls much more sympathetic, like an oppressed people. So I'm curious how they're going to roll. Maybe there's a faction of Skrulls that are bad or something. I don't know. We got Ironheart, which is Riri Williams. She's a character that came out a few years ago. The young African-American woman, person of color, that builds an Iron Man armor and became very popular in the comic books. Armor Wars, that's a very classic storyline where Stark's technology gets in the wrong hands and he goes around basically dropping anybody that has armor just in case they're using Stark technology. Now Stark's gone, so will it be Rhodey doing this? Has anybody read up on this or know anything about it?
I don't think there's anything really. It's so far out. I don't think there's even been things that have been released or leaked on it.
Okay, and then the classic Armor Wars is probably, I don't know if it's the biggest Iron Man arc. I would say the biggest Iron Man arc ever was his alcoholism, but it's a big one. It is a huge arc where, he's got the Avengers after him. Mm-hmm. He has to fake Iron Man's death. He's got S.H.I.E.L.D. after him because he didn't care who you are. If his technology got into your armor, he's taking you out. So, it is a really interesting arc. So, and then finally we have an Untitled Wakanda series. So that'll be interesting. Okay. That's phase 4 that we know of. I'm going to move us on, but that was a lot of ground to cover as fast as I could. Any comments on that before we go into WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Is it weird that I'm kind of looking forward to the TV shows more than the movies?
No. No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so because so here's the thing. By doing the Falcon and the Winter Soldier as a TV show, we got roughly 6 hours. If they'd have done it as a movie, we would have gotten 2 hours. So, there's something to be said about going for that big screen. There's some stuff you want to see on the big screen. Like, I want to see Spider-Man on the big screen. I want to see there's a few of them. Thor, I probably want to see on the big screen. But a lot of this stuff, I'm totally fine watching it at home, on Disney Plus or whatever. So, I don't know. Well, is it now? So, what, William, to clarify that, is it because the content seems more interesting to you than the movie content? Or why are you more interested?
Just to kind of keep this brief as possible. Black Widow has been delayed for so long. Some of these other films seem like they're kind of way out in the future. And I'm getting Loki next month. I'm getting these other shows fairly quickly. And like you said, they're longer form than the movies. So it's more of a chance for them to get geekier.
Well, there's something about a good TV show, especially if they release it weekly instead of putting everything out there to binge all in the same day, that you deliciously look forward to it. I did that with WandaVision. I did that with my wife, and I both did that with Falcon and Captain America. I just did that with Invincible, which was freaking amazing. I remember, in fact, I was going to reach out to you, Richard, because you've been telling me forever that the comic book is good.
Yeah.
So I've started reading the comic book as well. But that 8 episode, that was freaking amazing. That was good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm about that point or past it in the comic book now. So, and it's interesting that the comic book tells the same story but also doesn't. Right?
Just like all the MCU stuff is done.
Yeah. So, and I know we're not here to talk about Invincible, so I'll probably cut this out of the podcast, but it was interesting to me that in the comic book, like I watched the first episode of Invincible, and the dude basically kills the Guardians at the very end, what are basically the JLA.
Right.
He just kills them in the cartoon, boom.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading the comic book, and I'm like 6-7 episodes in.
It's not until issue like 20-something when that actually happens.
Yeah, it's fairly deep. Yeah, I can't remember.
It's like year 2. It's like year 2 of the actual run when that happens.
Well, so I'm like, did they just make that up for the TV series? Because Kirkman waited so long to spring that. So anyway, Invincible is very good. It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. I recommend it.
Agreed.
But that animated, have you watched it, William or Bill?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
That was freaking great. I was very impressed. So that subway scene where he held his head, man,
yeah,
good grief. So anyway, all right.
Yeah, kind of in the same vein of and they haven't made a show
Irredeemable?
out of it, but yes.
Yeah, I was going to tell you I've started reading that too. I'm about 30 issues in.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Mark Waid is like going out of his way to say, I'm not the Mark Waid you think I am.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you read that, Richard, Irredeemable?
I have some of the singles upstairs.
It's pretty darn good. It's Mark Waid writing Superman snapping.
Right, which is just right, exactly.
Yeah, and like in Irredeemable, tangent, I got to get us out of this, but Omni-Man didn't snap. He just finally revealed his true colors.
Right.
But Irredeemable, Plutonian just snaps. And
Now, are you reading Incorruptible alongside it?
No, I didn't know that they were parallel. I figured Incorruptible came later. Is that like
it really enhances it. No,
okay. I'll do that then. Okay. All right. Well, I will check that out. So it's good stuff. Very good stuff. It was interesting because I was like, oh, I'm reading Irredeemable and I'm reading Invincible. And, it's kind of similar storylines. Okay. Taking us back. Okay. So let's talk WandaVision. Here's my take on WandaVision. One, I was like, oh, we're in good hands with Phase 4 because this is really good. So, you didn't know what was going to happen with launching Phase 4 with a TV show. And then they had the genius but odd decision to set most episodes up like a sitcom, which I loved that very much. I'm still not sure that was the best decision because I've had people I've talked to, I'm like, man, WandaVision's great. And they're like, yeah, we watched like the first episode and we just didn't get it. And so we didn't keep watching it. I'm like, you got to give it to like episode 3. Right. And then it starts, so artistically, I love that they did that because, the ultimate thing was she's trying to have a normal life by living and leave it to Beaver, basically. And then they use the different decades to, comment on TV of the decades and all that. But long, short of it, whatever, I thought it was very good. I love that Marcy came back. Great character. Who's the FBI guy? John Woo? Jimmy Woo? The FBI guy.
Yeah. Jimmy Woo.
Is it Jimmy Woo?
He's an actual Marvel character. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 great characters there. I would love an X-Files show with Jimmy Woo. X-Files type show. It was great storytelling, and although spoilers, it's spoilers, people. She creates a zone of altered reality to try to feel comfortable and safe in with. She basically resurrects the Vision inside this little bubble of what she considers normal and takes like a town captive. So from one perspective, she's a supervillain. She took the town captive and they were having to live a life against their wills. So from one way of looking at it, the army guy wanting to wipe her out or whatever, it's kind of understandable. But since we care about her and Vision, of course, we didn't want that to happen. And then you had the big Agatha Harkness reveal, which was great. So I'm going to try to give you guys more time to talk about it than I do. I thought it was very good. I thought it was artistically good. I thought it was story-wise good. The extent of the powers that she revealed did not surprise me as a comic book reader. But if all you know is the movie stuff, you're like, what the crap is going on here? So, and they kind of hinted at it because Wanda, for a couple of moments in Infinity War, gave Thanos a hard time. If you'll remember.
Well, in Endgame.
Endgame. Yeah, Endgame. Yeah, you kill right. Yeah. I mean, gave him a hard time, handled him for a couple of moments. So, but anyway, that's my take on it. I really liked it a lot. They set up a lot of good stuff. Of course, you got White Vision, which is a classic thing from Avengers and Marvel Comics. There was a lot to like in it. So randomly, no reason whatsoever. Bill, what's your take on it? And then we'll let Richard give his shot on it.
Okay, just a couple of points real quick. To dovetail with a couple of things you said, my family with both of these shows, me, my wife, my son, it was appointment television for us every Friday night when these things would come on.
Right.
And my wife, interestingly, after the first couple of episodes of WandaVision, she was not really on board. But then but yet she couldn't turn away from it. So as we got deeper into it.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
She got more invested in it. And it was kind of interesting to me, like you were talking about Wanda's power levels. I mean, we did see this some in the movies because she did almost kill Ultron by herself. She did, when Thanos and his minions were attacking Wakanda, when she hit the field and took them all out, Okoye was, why hasn't she been here all along?
Yeah, where has she been?
And then, of course, in Endgame, when she basically made Thanos blink and fire on his own people. So, I mean, we did see that a little bit in the movies. But one of the things that I thought was really brilliant about it is not only was each episode, encapsulating a different sitcom era, it was also encapsulating a different stage of grief.
Oh, I didn't catch that. So they were going through the 5 stages of grief.
She's in denial. Yeah, and then the second one, it's anger, and then when fake Pietro shows up, it's bargaining. Then she goes.
I didn't even catch that. That's genius.
And then at the end of it, she's accepting of it, and that's when the whole veneer falls away. And that's
pretty genius. Like I said, I did not catch that at all.
And the other thing that I thought was really brilliant is that, you're correct, she is kind of actually the villain of the piece, but they do it in such a way that she doesn't lose her sympathetic aspect. And when she leaves and releases all these people, we're still not sure if she's gone back to being a hero or not.
Yeah, we don't know what she is. She's now the Scarlet Witch, whatever that means in the MCU. Like, she assumes the mantle of the Scarlet Witch, which Agatha was trying to. It's always been Agatha. Agatha was trying to prevent, but caused it. Basically, was the catalyst for her becoming the Scarlet Witch and assuming that mantle.
Yeah, and then you got the Darkhold, and you've got Agatha Harkness, and you've got.
I love that they brought all that in.
Yeah,
I love that they brought, because that's yeah, they did. Yeah, and people don't know, in the comics, Agatha Harkness has been a villain at times, but she was also the person that tutored Wanda in her... Because Wanda is a mutant in the comics, where that goes back, sometimes she's a mutant, sometimes she's not, that has the power to alter reality with her hexes. But she's also got magical ability, sorceress ability, and has learned some of that as well. And so they touched it in the Darkhold. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went into Darkhold a little bit, but it's now officially in the MCU, the movie or whatever, whatever the current MCU is. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier, talking about Thanos, one thing that's interesting about the Eternals, in the comic books, Thanos is an Eternal. He's, because Titan is an offshoot of the Earth Eternals. It's like a colony. So I don't know if they'll mess with that at all in the MCU or not, because they never really explained his origins, did they? He was just kind of there. No. But he's an Eternal, so I don't know if they'll mess around with that in the MCU or not. So, anyway, all right. What about you, Richard? What was your take on WandaVision?
Yeah. So, kind of going back to my earlier statement, I think in an effort to part of the combating superhero fatigue was by design, and then some of it was out of our hands, obviously, with the pandemic, with the delay of all the stuff that was going to hit last year. So, but I think it was really smart on their part to lead out of the gate with WandaVision, because it was such a differently formatted in terms of just its approach series. So I think that was a smart play on their part to lead with WandaVision, to give us something different, something with a slow burn. And I think that was...
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Very, like I said, very smart on their part. I think the show, there were a lot of things to like in it. And I had very minor gripes about it overall. I think it was... The strongest point of that show or that series for me was the three leads. I think that Elizabeth and oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name, Paul Bettany. So Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. Yeah, I think their chemistry has only blossomed as it's moved forward from when we first were introduced with their characters. So I think the believability of them two on screen together really shined in this series, and then Catherine Hahn being the third pillar of that really elevated. Yeah.
Was that Agatha,
the wacky neighbor who
neighbor?
She just really elevated it as well, and I think became a fan favorite for a lot of people who watch. So, and then
well, I have to say, in retrospect, there was the Halloween episode. There was a huge hint that she was Agatha Harkness when she's sitting in the car wearing a witch's costume, and right over my head. And because she was playing like she was all slow motion like everybody else and everything. But in retrospect, I was like, well, that was
hiding in plain sight, right? Which is what they were really good with in that series too.
Yeah,
I think that was another brilliant part of what made that show so good. So I was, like I said, going back to her power set and power level, I was explaining to my wife about, I think it was either House of X series, whatever series where she does the No More Mutants, where she basically erases mutant kind from the Marvel comic universe. And that, so I was, explaining as we were watching that show, explaining to my wife about how truly powerful that character is from a canon perspective. And obviously we understand they have to power level down quite a few characters in the MCU because then you run into some real issues when you don't do that. So, but I can't wait to see what season 2 brings. I am, if there is, I don't know if it's been officially, put out there that there is. If there is, I look forward to it. If it's a one and done situation, I think it was a great one and done, and I like the way that the story ran. It ended. I'd love to see a series with just Jimmy Woo and Darcy together as a tag team.
Yeah, I would be all. I'm on board with that.
Give me a.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I said Marcy.
Yeah, Darcy and Wu, and let them two have kind of a almost like what was the X-Files offshoot series with the three guys? The Lone Rangers.
Or no, the Lone Gun.
The Lone Rangers.
So give me something like that, maybe.
Because their magazine they published was the Lone Gunmen. So yeah, no, I'd watch that, and I've heard a lot of people chatter that they would watch that. So, but I think there was a lot of good stuff. Like I said, it was creatively very interesting, and risky, but it also did some just straight up superhero storytelling. And then by about episode 4, you're full on back in the MCU. It's fully connected into the MCU, and you're getting more standard MCU action. Again, you got Monica Rambeau, becoming, who was the little girl in Captain Marvel, who's now grown up. And she got her by pushing into the reality distortion or whatever, and being thrown out and going back in and all this stuff. She's basically got her, whatever her powers are going to be. In the comic book, they're light-based. She's energy-based and light-based, but we'll see what she does in the MCU. We got the White Vision, who almost looks like might be a villain or a antagonist, because it's not the Vision, it's a Vision. I mean, the way they did it, it's not the main Vision. That was kind of how I interpreted it. And then, a couple of things I want to mention. One, her power level was off the charts, which I was glad they did that, because I was like, okay, that's what it should be. I mean, especially in this full-on grief and all that. 2, that scene where she went into S.H.I.E.L.D. and the guy's like, yeah, you can't have your husband's body back. It's basically our property now, which I don't get that. How is the Vision S.H.I.E.L.D. property? I still don't get that one. But
gripe number 1.
Because Age of Ultron... it's like, how is he S.H.I.E.L.D. property? Because I don't remember anything in Age of Ultron about S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know anyway. But when she sees him all pulled apart like that, imagine seeing your loved one on a table pulled apart like that. Of course you're going to snap. I mean, I think he thought he was doing a favor by saying, look, let me show you the full situation here. Let me be frank with you. But yeah, of course you're going to, I mean, my goodness. So I wasn't surprised that she snapped. Yeah. But as Bill and I have both said, for a while, I mean, she basically was a supervillain. She took over that whole town in her grief. So, and I loved, again, we've talked about how they went through the sitcoms and used that not only to point out where her mental state was at that moment, but it was also kind of a fun romp through how TV has changed over the years and that sort of thing. So there was some pretty cool stuff going on there. And I love little moments. Like there was one moment where all of a sudden Vision is like sitting in a chair talking to a microphone. And he looks around and he's like, what am I doing? And he stands up and leaves. It's like, what is going on here? Who am I even talking to? So I thought that was really good. So that was a lot of fun. So, and I don't think I've heard anything negative about WandaVision. I think pretty much almost everybody universally loved it. Now, Richard, if you want to share your minor kvetches, you're
no.
We more than welcome to.
We won't get it. No need for that talk.
It's
right.
It's geek kvetching. It's minor stuff. Okay, so really well done TV. I remember years ago when TiVo first came out. When TiVo first came out, and they said, "Well, this is the end of TV because nobody's going to watch commercials and this and that and the other." And all it's led to between that and streaming is more competition to make better content that people will watch. So all of that, there's the golden age of television way back when, but I mean, I think we're in a golden age of television right now and have been for a while because there's just so much good content out there. It's an embarrassment of riches. Okay. Any final thoughts, Bill, on WandaVision?
I would just like to, say again, it was so well done, so well thought out from beginning to end. It was pretty seamless. I love the reference to the Fox X-Men movies. I
did want to talk about that. The Pietro actor showing up.
Yeah.
Were they just having fun?
Yeah.
Or were they trying to say something there? Or,
yeah. I mean,
because that.
Just the thing where Darcy looks around and says she recast Pietro.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, see, at first my thought was, oh, this is how they're going to bring that actor over into the MCU.
Yeah.
But then they totally pulled a switcheroo and like, no, it was just for that.
Yeah.
He was just in there for a couple episodes. So they were totally just having fun.
Yeah. And I mean,
is that the take on it?
And it was great that he was the guy that, Jimmy was there to find.
Oh, okay. I think I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Missed that or something.
Yeah, because at the beginning, he was like missing
what about
case, right? When he goes up to the town very first where Monica's there. Yeah.
And that was the kid.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think I caught that. Okay. Wow. But that's still that's just a big creatives. I don't know, just a big wink at the audience to have him as the actor. So that's pretty funny. Like I said, I thought they were just bringing him over, that this is how we're going to bring him into the MCU as the actor. So, there was so much cool stuff going on with that. And then, the stuff with her kids, that was some heart-wrenching stuff. Yeah. And I mean, there was some real feels in that. So anyway, all right. So we all liked WandaVision. Again, I was like, okay, Marvel, the MCU is still in good hands. Phase 4 is off to a good start. So let's lead into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is sort of a buddy cop TV series, sort of a good old-fashioned straight-up action Marvel series. It was much more normal storytelling than WandaVision. It was a lot like getting a 6-hour movie, or 5.5, whatever it was. And I'll tell you another thing I really like with a trend they've been doing in streaming lately. The episodes are as long as they need to be.
I would agree.
Yes.
If it needs to be 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes. If it's 48 minutes, it's 48 minutes. Because that helps the pace of each episode be perfect. You tell just as much of the story as you need to tell. So anyway, getting back to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, really good series. I enjoyed it a lot. Great action, good storytelling. A lot of what does it mean to be Captain America? That was a lot of what it was at the heart of it. And then also two people who really don't like each other, but they had a mutual friend in common that they both loved and respected. So they're like, well, there has to be something in this other guy because my friend who I loved and respected liked him. So there was that buddy cop dynamic, them getting used to each other. And then, of course, you had John Walker being introduced as the new Captain America, which comic book nerds know that he was eventually probably going to become U.S. Agent. I think he's been a couple of different things, but U.S. Agent is what they've set him up for here. You had sort of a complex story, a sympathetic villain, that was against what the government was doing. A lot of the politics in this show, I thought they were a little bit too complicated for just telling an action story, and I'll tell you why. Because the politics were all about the snap
the
and
blip.
Then what do they call the blink when they came back?
The blip.
The blip. So the governments had to shift gears after the blip when everybody suddenly shows back up. And it caused a lot of disruption and people like, well, you're living in my house. And, there was refugee camps and all this stuff. And so the government was trying to make decisions. I forget what they call it, the global relocation something. I don't know. They had the GRC. And there were a lot of people. So here's the thing, like when you have a sympathetic villain, like let's step back for a second because it touches a little bit on what's happening in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which ends up being the Captain America and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier. When Thanos did his snap and half of everybody disappeared, you'll notice that the Marvel movies occasionally made comments like, hey, you can see whales in the bay again, and this and that and the other. Like, his methods were horrible, but what he was trying to do was actually good, reduce lack of resources and pollution and all of this stuff. So there were people, I guess after the snap happened, they kind of mentioned during the Falcon and the Winter Soldier that when there's this huge global travesty, all these countries came together and borders became not as important and everybody was just working together to help each other out and all this stuff. And so then they liked that. And then the blip happens, everybody comes back and things start going back to the way it was. And then people are getting forcibly relocated and all this stuff. So you have these people affected by that call themselves the Flag Smashers, which there was a Flag Smasher character in the comic book, so I'm sure that was a nod to him. He was a Captain America villain. And so that was there. They got their hands on the Super Soldier Serum by stealing it from the Power Broker, who's also a character in the comic books. And so you got Super Soldier, either freedom fighters or terrorists, depending on what your perspective is. And enter Sam Wilson and the Winter Soldier. And a big thing going on here is Sam Wilson struggling with what do I do with Captain America's shield? I don't think that I'm up to being this legacy. So he gives the shield to the government. The government puts it on display for about a day and a half and then decides to create a new Captain America, John Walker. They give him the shield, big public relations campaign. We've lost Bill for the moment. Maybe we'll get him back, hopefully. But in the meantime, anyway, so you have this whole situation where, Sam Wilson, I think, kind of feels betrayed by the government that they did what they did, because he gave them the shield to honor Cap and the legacy and all of this. And then they turned around and made it, just took some guy who I thought that the John Walker character, when they first introduced him, was not a complete gump. He's a really well-established soldier that they've handed a big responsibility and he wants to try to live up to it. Now, as it turns out, as the series progresses, he's got some, I don't know if you want to call it insecurity issues or something that causes him to make bad decisions to try to live up to those shoes that he's trying to fill. But as a character, now, would I want him for the permanent Captain America? Probably not. But I did not think he was I didn't hate him out the gate.
Sure.
I was like, he's trying to do the best he can. And, they give his military record and all that. Okay, so what were your thoughts on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Looking at that show or that series on its surface, at least before any viewing, I think a lot of people's takeaway was, this is kind of the MCU's version of the buddy cop series, and it absolutely that was, especially from the media that was released leading up to the show. It was setting it up like a very Lethal Weapon like kind of Riggs and Murtaugh, dynamic, right? But after watching, to me, the show really it's really stood on three main points, which is legacy, right? Which is specifically Steve Rogers' legacy, right? So it's legacy, it's race relations, and how that dynamic works within the context of Sam ultimately being past the mantle of Captain America, and global community versus nationalism, right? Because as you said, the GRC, when the blip happened, all these people disappear and things change and then they reappear and it just throws the entire world into a whack or out of whack.
Right. Which I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they didn't just hand wave that.
Right. There's real world repercussions that happened when things were restored, and so that was a good way for the MCU to follow up that point from Endgame with Bruce Banner doing the snap and bringing everyone back. So I think the show it was a very tight series. The first episode came out of the gate very, very well. I thought the reintroduction of Batroc was an interesting little nod to Winter Soldier, which I liked.
Yeah, I know. I was like, when he came out, I thought they've already had Batroc.
Oh, yeah, it's the same actor.
So was that the same actor?
I thought that was neat. Yeah.
I've always liked Batroc the Leaper. I've always liked him. In fact, there was a story I read with him a few years ago. It was one of the more modern stories, but he had been hired to help a crew of bad guys get away with something when they were pretty sure that Captain America was going to show up. And, they kept giving him a hard time. He's like, you always lose to Captain America. And he's like, yeah, but I can keep up with him a lot longer than any of you schmucks, so, I don't know. There's something about Batroc the Leaper. I've just always liked him.
Right.
He's cheesy, but I've always liked the character.
Right. But I liked his place in this series and kind of his reintroduction, if you will. I thought the series, it had a little dip for me, episode 2 and 3. And then, but it finished very strongly. I also think Wyatt Russell's performance as John Walker was one of the better performances of a character in any series that you just love to hate the character. And that to me is a testament to his acting job in that role. I think it was unfortunate the hate that he received in the social spheres for his character, because the way his character is introduced is just that, end of episode 1,
well, they did that on purpose because, the picture they put out of him on social media was from an angle that made him look like a complete goober.
I know, right?
Right, big ears.
They did, but it was just,
they did that on purpose.
It just came out of the gate with him,
but still,
his character. His character couldn't be accepted. I mean, even if he wasn't introduced in that manner because of the performance that Chris Evans did in the role leading to that.
Right. No matter who you are, you're he's like when your friend dumps the girlfriend that you loved, and then whoever he's dating next, you're going to be inclined.
Even if she's the greatest person in the world,
to be with the other girlfriend he was. Right. Exactly. Because you're comparing. So earlier we had lost Bill due to a computer shutdown or reboot. Something like that happened. Fortunately, he was able to save the first part of the show that he had been recording. But anyway, at this point, he comes back. And when we resume, I'm explaining to him what Richard and I were in the middle of. Also, at this point, we went from editing with 3 individual tracks to just one track that's a backup recording that I always do for every show. And the audio is still very good, but you may hear a little bit of background noise or something like that I wasn't able to edit out. Anyway, on with the show. Richard and I are talking about his take on Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then I'll let you do yours, of course. So, John Walker, I actually did not think that John Walker... I never thought of him as a villain until he decided to take the super soldier syndrome or serum. Okay. Up till that point, he was just being the best Captain America he could be. Right. And I really liked Battlestar, the guy that they, because that's the thing, if you were paying attention, he wasn't a bad guy. No. He had a good military record. He loved his country. He obviously had a loyal friend who had his back. Who was also a good guy. He was just trying to fill huge shoes. And when the Wakandans, I think they didn't come right out and say, well, I think he might have even said, like when a woman beat him, he couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
His ego couldn't handle that. And I think that's what led him to say, okay, I got to have the super serum, right? But he didn't realize who those Wakandans were. I mean, he wasn't taking that into it, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead and finish with your first impressions or whatever, your overall take on it there, Richard. Because you were saying that, like, the advertising made it seem like it was just going to be a buddy cop movie, and then it became so much more, is kind of what I heard you say. And then we started talking about John Walker.
Right. And that's ultimately, like I said, where that series, where it took me as a viewer, it took me to a place that I was very happy to be as a viewer. Ultimately, initially when Anthony Mackie was cast as Falcon originally, I think for Winter Soldier, I'd only seen him in The Hurt Locker previously. That was the only work I'd known him from. And he's fine, but I wasn't necessarily enamored with him. I didn't dislike him. And even the early stages of his MCU career, he was kind of there. In this series, I really fell in love with him as an actor.
Right.
And I fell in love with him as his character becoming Captain America. And that to me is another testament to the series and the great work that was done on it, not only by he himself, but all the talent, that was associated with it. So that was a big takeaway for me is when I got done watching it and I was like, I love his character now. And I love his performance. And I'm very much happy and glad that he is in the role of Captain America now as Sam Wilson. So I love that. I loved, everything else associated with the show. Like I said, there was a dip in pacing. I had pacing issues with episode 2 and 3. But that's, a minor gripe. I think it's interesting that our first 2 series, TV series in the MCU Phase 4 have 2 characters that have broke bad maybe, which is interesting and has really, I've seen a little bit of pushback online with Emily Van Camp's. I know a lot of people with Agent Carter's kind of revelation with her character.
With Sharon Carter.
I'm glad that Emily Van Camp is back. And I wanted to see more of her character out of Winter Soldier and the little bit she had in Civil War. But, it's interesting. We've got Scarlet Witch and now Agent Carter, both traditionally good characters who are walking morally ambiguous gray areas. Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens from there.
Well, I feel like to touch on that, and that was going to be one of the points I made. So I'm glad you went there. It was great to see her back. I like the actress. I like the character of Sharon Carter. Sharon Carter's always been very important in the Captain America comic books. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't feel like Scarlet Witch broke bad. I feel like that Scarlet Witch had a mental episode and then recovered from it. Right. But who knows where she goes from here? She may defy good or bad terms because she's like, the Scarlet Witch now, which they're setting up to be this huge thing in the MCU. Sharon Carter broke bad. She's like, okay, you guys did me dirty. I've been done wrong. And this is how I'm going to live my life. And I'm going to break bad. So she's the power broker. Not only is she the power broker. What's that?
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler. Yeah, there's spoilers. In the comic books, the power broker was this character that would literally give you superpowers. Mm-hmm. So like villains would go to him to get superpowers so they could become supervillains. In this show here, they went to Madripoor, which I thought was interesting. They made Madripoor a major, because Madripoor is like kind of the forbidden city of the Marvel comics. Like that's where all the bad stuff can happen. And she's the power broker, which basically she had the super soldier syndrome serum. But they don't reveal that till like the last episode. Is it the last episode where they reveal that
about her being the power broker? Yeah, that's the last. That's the last 15 minutes of the last episode,
right? And
they drop a hint in the next to last episode, but
what was the hint?
She's on the phone and she's telling somebody, "I didn't get you out of that Algerian prison
For Batroc, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the next thing you know, Batroc is showing up to hang out with the Flag Smash. So
right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't put that together. But not only is she the power broker, but she's ruthless. She's like gunning people down in cold blood, and so she's a villain. She has become a villain, and she's okay with that. And she lets Sam get her a pardon, so she can come back and join the intelligence agency. In the very last scene, she's basically on the phone like, I'm in. I'm in the toy store, basically. So, she's broke bad, as Richard puts it. So, what about you, William? So what was your take? What was your overall take on it?
Well, I thought that it was basically, you get 4 and 5 if you count Carly, but there are at least 4 very strong character arcs. You got Sam and his struggle with accepting the mantle that's been thrust upon him. You got Bucky with him trying to reconcile for the things he did that he didn't have any control over. And you've got John Walker trying to struggle with living up to something he can't live up to.
Right.
And then you have, to a lesser extent, you've got Sharon, who we, discover is kind of gone down a dark path.
And then we have another subplot, which Richard kind of touched on earlier. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's a relatively new character in the Marvel universe, but for a period in the Marvel Comics universe, there was a Black Captain America.
Yes, Isaiah. Yeah.
Right, Isaiah. And, so you have that subplot of, basically the U.S. government did him way dirty, to the point where he was living in hiding. So nobody would know where he was. And he had the super soldier serum in his blood. And then so over the course of the series, Sam learns about this and then does what he can to set things right to make his story public and that sort of thing. So, and interestingly, I'm pretty sure that the guy who played Isaiah is the guy that played Martian Manhunter's father on the Supergirl TV series.
Yes, and he also voiced Martian Manhunter on the Justice League cartoon.
Well, there you go. So he's no stranger to superhero stuff. But there was some good stuff. We can't talk about Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, which they did in the comics for a while. Steve Rogers got aged to where he was extremely old, and Sam Wilson took the mantle over. And then, so they're following that storyline in the MCU. But you can't have that, especially in the current climate that we've had the past couple of years. They didn't try to shy away from it. They leaned into what does it mean for a black man to be Captain America, and there was a lot of should you even try that? Will they allow it? Will they destroy you? Isaiah was like, here's what I've gone through. And so there was a lot, but it wasn't just about a black man becoming Captain America. I think the first struggle was Sam was like, can I be Captain America, period? Right. Can I live up to Steve Rogers? Yeah. And then, kind of the ultimate solution was that I'm not going to try to be Steve. I'm going to try to be me. Right. I'm going to do the best I can do. But you also had, the dynamics of racial tensions up to and including where they had the scene where Winter Soldier and Sam were arguing in the street, and the cops pull up and automatically assume that something's wrong with Sam, right?
Yeah.
And I don't believe this. I saw some headline. Somebody said, massive hitting stop on the streaming services at that moment. I don't believe that. I mean, because it wasn't. That stuff happens. And yes. None of what they presented felt heavy-handed. It felt accurate. It felt real, without being, you have to preach a little bit, but it wasn't overly preachy. It was just laying it out there. So I thought they did a good job of addressing that.
Yeah, I thought that scene was completely believable.
Totally believable to me.
Yeah. it didn't seem, like they were reaching or, trying to make a point. It's just, that's where we are right now.
Right.
And,
right. Well, that stuff's been going on forever. I mean, if in certain neighborhoods or certain areas, if there's a black man and a white man arguing, the cops will automatically assume, there's something wrong, so that I felt that was accurate. Yeah. But I saw somebody's like, everybody hit stop right there. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe somebody did, but I really doubt there were mass people hitting stop at that moment.
Well, and the other scene that was interesting that ties into that happened in episode 2. So that was like episode 4 or 5, I believe,
something
the one
like that
we're talking about. But in episode 2, if you remember, when he and his sister go into the bank in Louisiana, and the guy's like, "Well, we don't," and then he's like, "Oh, you're foul," and he's high-fiving the guy, and they're like, and you're, as a viewer, you're like, "Oh," and then he's like, "Well, still sorry, like we can't give you a loan because." Well, so that was another interesting scene that gives you a view into that world for a lot of people. And
sure. You don't even have to be black or whatever to. I mean, you just have to live in a poor community to do your best, and the bank won't help you. Right. But he was like, "Hey, can you put your arms out like your wing?" And so I was like, "What?" Right. But what was about that? Like they went in. That was an interesting scene because. They went in, and the guy's like, "Man, your family's done business with our bank forever.
Yeah,
all this stuff. You're the frickin' Falcon, but we're not going to give you the loan. Sorry, know." And and that was, but that was a significant scene for Sam. Because, he's trying to come home and help his family fix. Did they ever fix the boat? They never even show if the boat got fixed.
Well, they don't show you like a one of those, showroom floor style shots. But I think at the very end of the last episode, because there was a shot of the name, it's his parents' name on the boat. That's the name of the boat, right?
Right.
And I think there was the idea that, yes, I think it was more than just that new coat of paint. Idea. Yeah. It's hey, we've got the boat right, because he spends multiple scenes throughout the series.
Yeah, that was
working in the engine and trying to get the actual boat running.
Yeah,
and I think they ultimately get it running, and that's
right.
So
I think that it was. I liked the continuing thing with the boat. And I love the scene where Sam. They really make the point that Sam has to practice with the shield before he can use it. I mean, they show it almost felt like a 5-minute montage of him
training montage.
With the shield. But it was. I mean, overall, again, with WandaVision and then this, you had 2 vastly different types of shows, but they were both really well done. And after both of them, I was like, okay, we're in good hands with Phase 4. They're not missing a beat. They're telling good stuff. They're not scrapping and starting over with all new characters, they're building on what has come before. I thought Sam becoming Captain America was really good. I liked it. And I love the striking imagery of Captain America with actually the big wings, like an eagle and all
Beautiful.
That, Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about Bucky. Bucky didn't get as much character development, but he did get character development mainly in dealing with his inner demons. And he might have gotten romantic interest, but Sam told him not to flirt with his sister, so that put that in the kibosh. So he was like, "Hi." He's like, "Don't flirt with my sister." So when we start, Bucky's trying to basically make amends with his past. He's got a list of people that he did wrong as the Winter Soldier under brainwashing. The one that they used to really drive the point home is there's the old man that he killed his son. And so he's trying to befriend the old man and build up his courage to tell him that I killed your son because the guy wants closure on where his son is. And of course, at the end he did. And so I thought that was pretty good. One thing that we got to see with Winter Soldier or Bucky or whatever that we'd never really gotten to see was a lightness in his personality, more of a joking and a kind of, we never really got to see that in any other stuff. So we kind of got to see that in this. And I liked that, like, his reputation as the Winter Soldier is a big deal. Like, when they went into that bar in Madripoor, everyone was give him a hard time until they went, "This is the Winter Soldier," and then everybody kind of backed off, when it was the Winter Soldier. So, and I didn't realize that in the MCU, Bucky has the mechanical arm, but he was also like doing super soldier stuff. I didn't realize that he had all that. Did y'all know that?
Yeah,
I mean,
they established that in Captain America: The Winter Soldier that they had what's his name, Arnim Zola, when he and the Red Skull had captured him, they had done experiments on him.
So it wasn't literally the super soldier serum, but it was
a similar process. Yeah,
because he was definitely enhanced. I mean, he was running faster than trucks and stuff like that. So. Which, at the beginning, you're like, well, I wonder if they're going to make him Captain America because he's he's already got all of and they did that for a brief time in the comic books. After Captain America got shot and killed, he was, for a brief time, he was Captain America. But this show was all about the Falcon becoming the Captain America. So it became pretty apparent that was the direction it was going. But I liked everything we got to see with Bucky. He was kind of the muscle of the show. Like when muscle was needed. Yeah, he was kind of the muscle. And I loved, I'll say it like 80 more times, loved the therapy scene with Sam and Bucky when the therapist has them in therapy and tells them to pull the chairs together. Evidently, some of that was ad-libbed. So I don't know how much of it, but some of it was
believe
ad-libbed.
that.
Yeah, some of it was ad-libbed. Like I read an article that the actress that played the counselor or the therapist, psychiatrist, was just like watching all this stuff go on. But I thought it was pretty good. That was a really great cinema moment. I don't care if it was TV or not. That was a great character moment, good fun moment. And I liked that after that, they weren't immediately buddy-buddy. They were still like kind of at odds with each other and stuff like that. So we've got to talk about, and then we're about an hour and a half now getting there.
Yeah.
Zemo.
Mm-hmm.
Loved Zemo.
I love me some Baron Zemo, and I love me some Daniel Bruhl.
Yeah, I did not get any sense of how great that actor was at that character from, was it?
Civil War.
No sense at all. And I loved him. I was like, this dude's totally a bad guy, but I want to hang out with him.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah, I want like a Baron Zemo series.
Yeah, I do too.
And just have him going around doing Baron Zemo stuff.
He was great. Because in the Civil War, he just seemed like a kind of an average guy. Like, you didn't get a lot of Zemo-ness out of him, right? That he was this like aristocracy and all this other stuff. But yeah, I loved it. I mean, they even had the coat with the fur, and he put the mask on for a little while. I was loving what they did with Zemo. I was way into that. What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting kind of flip it on its head with his character. And that was one of the other things in the online world that folks were, I think, what some people's main gripe was that they took a character like Sharon Carter and made you dislike her, and you had a character like Zemo and made you like him.
Yeah.
So that was interesting how they took those two characters and flipped the script with them to some degree. But I agree. I think Daniel Bruhl is a great actor in his own right. I've seen him in quite a few other things. So I've always enjoyed his work. And I was glad that he was allowed to kind of blossom a little more with the character in this series, where in Civil War, he was kind of your villain of the week. Yeah, right.
It didn't have to be Zemo in Civil War. It could have been
right. And so that's why, that villain of the week kind of his character in Civil War was one of the weakest parts of that movie.
I agree with
my
that.
opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I agree overall. Very much enjoyed his performance, and he brought some more to the character this go round. So it was good.
Right. Well, I think that I really liked it a lot, and there's so much more we could talk about, but I want to wrap us up. I thought Falcon and Winter Soldier, which ended on Captain America and the Winter Soldier, was really good.
But shouldn't it be Captain America and Bucky? Real quick, my two other little gripes about the Falcon and Winter Soldier series was, that to me it was the journey of those two characters and their growth and maturation, and the fact that at the end he had kind of shed that Winter Soldier character, that persona. And yet it was still Captain America and the Winter Soldier instead of Captain America and Bucky or something else.
Yeah,
which, that's a whole nother. That's not. It's a minor
for
thing.
Marketing purposes.
I know.
They're always in marketing, but I take your meaning. Like he finally worked his way out.
Well, and it kind of felt like that not cheapened, but that shortchanged his character's journey. And the other thing that really irked me was that final scene with the old man that he befriended. I'm like, here it is. This is the scene. We're going to get that emotional.
Yeah, they cut
payoff.
away from it. Yeah,
and they cut. I mean, he tells them, and then the next instant he's out in the hallway, and I'm like, "Oh, you're kidding me! Like, why did you shortchange us as viewers that moment of his character really getting that? Do the work, right? He gets that redemption moment with that old man, and they didn't give it to us, and I was disappointed in that. But
yeah, I can see that. I wonder if they just didn't feel like they could do a scene that would do it justice. So they just left it up to your imagine. That's what I'm saying. He got character growth, but he didn't get anywhere near the same amount of character growth that Sam did. But really, the show was more about Sam. I mean, it was somewhat about Bucky, but
I know
it's more about Sam. I did like that, and this is where I'll end on this. I liked that Sam's really first public thing he did as Captain America on the cameras and everything was speak truth to power. Mm-hmm. He chewed the government out. Mm-hmm, They were like, thank you for saving us. He's like, yeah, that's great and everything, but y'all need to hear some stuff. So I thought that was good, and I think that's kind of in tune with the times. Mm-hmm. That, even in the comic books, Captain America has, he's gone against the government at times. Mm-hmm. So that it's Captain America in the comics and now in the shows he should be the spirit of America, not just a super soldier, even though the super soldier part is, very cool. So overall, I give both series, WandaVision and Captain America and the Winter Soldier, big thumbs up. Would definitely love to get some more. A lot of good stuff going on there. All right, William, Bill, lay it on us. You have any final thoughts on Falcon?
Well, I would like to briefly defend Sharon Carter's heel turn.
Okay, go ahead.
You touched on this a little bit. I mean, the blip happens. She's stuck there. Sam comes back. Bucky comes back. Bucky gets a pardon. She's stuck in Madripoor. And they didn't really touch on this, but the object of her affection turned out to be her uncle.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, that's what they mentioned, that she was on the run because she helped Captain America whenever he was.
They didn't do anything to help her when they came back. And she's lost her career. She's a woman without a country. She gave up everything to help them. And in return, everything was just gone. She didn't get anything back, and she kind of had to survive on her own. And 5 years of that will harden a person.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not saying that there weren't narrative reasons. I'm just saying if you have strength of character and if you're a good person, you're going to maybe find a way to survive without turning into a power broker.
We should keep in mind that unlike Captain America or like Steve and Sam, she's not a superhero. She's a spy.
True.
And spies often have to make morally questionable choices in their line of work. And having a predisposition to that in her profession already, she probably is. She fell into this kind of going with the flow and doing what she had to do to survive.
It's fair. Like I said, it's, I don't hate it. I just that felt a little forced to me. But, comic books greatly, and comic book movies to a lesser extent, they're soap operas on a certain level. I mean, there's dramatic. You have to have dramatic stuff happening to keep the excitement and the interest going. So, even when I loved comic books back as a teenager, I was like, these are basically super soap operas with superpowers. Because there was always the big dramatic stuff going on and whatever. So, I mean, it's fair enough. She was never a major character to begin with. Now, in the comics, Sharon Carter. Different, but in the movies, she played very minor role. You could say that for the actress, she now has, better stuff to do and more stuff to do in the MCU. So from that perspective, the character has more legs now, that they'll use. Last thing I want to touch on, we'll do this quickly, and then I want to end this. So basically having, I can't believe I can't think of her name, Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Boom, show up. Evidently, that was a big secret on the set until she showed up. I don't know who she works for, but, there's speculation out there there's speculation that she's a combination of two different characters from the comic books. One, because of what she's doing. Two, because of her name. And then three, because of that little purple or blue streak in her hair or whatever. The most prevailing theory is that she's recruiting a Dark Avengers. So,
I've heard that.
Yeah, that's the most prevailing theory. I first assumed that she was just working for the power broker and wanted John Walker because they want the super serum. But then, it seemed like pretty soon after that, once they put him in the U.S. agent and all outfit and all that that's not the case. So. I thought that was really interesting. And of course, everybody's like, well, I can't believe it's Elaine. Here she is. And, so that, and one of the theories is that the next Avengers movie will be like a Dark Avengers movie where you have, I don't know. There's different theories going on around out there. So might be kind of interesting. Any speculation from you guys on what she's up to or what they're doing?
Nope, just along for the ride.
Yeah, I didn't really get enough from that to develop a theory.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Well, I think it's safe to say that we both that all three of us enjoyed both series very much.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I'm really pleased. I'm like, wow. This is like you expect good out of Marvel, right? Because of their track record, but I mean they're not phoning it in. Nobody is phoning it in. They're trying to tell good stuff. So, all right, guys, what's in there, man? I appreciate your time so much. Let's let some more Marvel stuff come out, and we'll regroup in a few months or a year and kind of talk about the state of things. But I appreciate you very much. And bad joke of the week. I got it as bad joke of the week. Here it comes. You ready?
Ready.
I'm gonna do it. Hold on. Okay, where'd I put that bad joke of the week? I've got it here somewhere. I picked it out just for this show and this episode. Here it goes. All right, you ready? Are you sure you're ready?
And go.
Mentally ready?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't the Avengers use the Hulk to advertise? I mean, he's essentially a giant banner.
Ta-da-ch.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. That fits the bill.
Yes, it does. All right, well, guys, thanks so much for joining. I've enjoyed it, and we will catch everybody next time on Shane Plays. Thanks for listening.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.